sharp criticism and calls for Raphael Tuju, the Secretary General, to step down. Infightings in Jubilee Party, but to what end? We analyze that topic as well. Not forgetting the public service reforms. The Public Service Commission has cracked the whip. As from July the 1st, all government employees will be evaluated through performance contracts, and new staff are set to work on 3-year renewable contracts. All this is in a bid to actually cut back on the ballooning wage bill within the public service. 790 billion shillings in the 2018-2019 financial year was spent. Will this have a proper effect in terms of cutting back on wages? Joining me to discuss this very important topics, as usual, I'll start with Kipchumba Karori, who is a political strategist. Many thanks for making time. Mark Bichachi, communication strategist, as well as the great Dismas Mukua, who is a political risk analyst. Roslyn Obala will be joining us later on. She is a senior reporter at The Standard. Gentlemen, many thanks for making time. All right, and thank you for having me as well, as I'm sitting in for Ben Kitili. All right, so let's get into the thick of it right now. A section of Jubilee leaders have asked President Uhuru Kenyatta to learn to manage his anger, terming his outburst last week uncalled for, led by defiant Bahati legislator Kimani Ngunjiri. The leaders say President Kenyatta should just come clean on what he wants and engage Jubilee leaders in a more modest way before turning to public outbursts. But just why has President Kenyatta's all previous directives against early campaigns fallen in deaf ears? Our political affairs reporter, Murimi Mwangi, interrogates.
Frustration, fury, and raw emotions perhaps best describes President Uhuru Kenyatta's mood on Sunday, when he took to his Kikuyu dialect, warning of dire consequences to any Mount Kenya politician that defies his directive for immediate end to early campaigns. Less than 24 hours later, a section of Jubilee leaders allied to his deputy William Ruto are a disappointed lot.
He should control that anger. You know, as a father, when you have that anger, you make children scared, and some they can start doing a different statement or fearing to tell you the truth.
Leo hao wanajiuliza maswali. Kwa sababu wewe ukienda hapa chini kwa huyu mganga unafurahi sana. Lakini ukija kwetu unakuwa na hasira sana. Hii hasira ni nini baba?
The leaders who were attending the burial of a brother to Bahati legislator Kimani Ngunjiri also want the president to reach out to his deputy with a reassurance of his support in 2022. And to guide the rest of the Jubilee fraternity on a logical way forward founded on transparency and a clear roadmap to rebuild the economy. Mount Kenya leaders partly appeared to heed the president's warning late last year as they retreated to this parliamentary caucus in Naivasha before meeting cabinet secretaries from the region to discuss what development projects to prioritize in the region. The last of these meetings, insiders say, was one held at Lamada Hotel on the 1st of November last year and was attended by, among others, CS's Peter Munya, Cicely Kariuki, Margaret Kobia, and Joe Musheru. But it was not long before the leaders resumed the politicking.
Today, Central looks to be more in politics than the rest of regions in Kenya.
But are the routine weekend Tanga Kieleweke campaigns really a hindrance to the president's development agenda?
Some of the members of parliament who are going around, every other weekend in campaigns cannot singly say that this is a project that have been undertaken in their individual constituencies.
Shoka gecagi gwaku wake cukuru wekirira andu thitima na mbeca irio hetwo tiga guku guthiuruka ugitwiraga uri ukaneneha gutire kundu ugathie utari na andu aya.
What is there knowing you? I don't think. And you have not even told us what you want.
Now, power, they say, is taken, not given, and with key political protagonists angling for strategic seats on the 2022 dinner table, President Kenyatta no doubt stares at murkier times ahead as key Jubilee leaders continue to weigh his warning against early campaigns. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
All right, many thanks, Murimi Mwangi. So let's start with that. It was not a matter of if, but when President Kenyatta would blast politicking members of parliament, while he has obviously set a development path in terms of building the Big Four agenda. So, Kipchumba, President Kenyatta has reached the boiling point, and it's not the first time. We've seen this, if I'm to remember clearly, last year around November while he was in Nyeri, he also blasted central members of parliament who are keen on politicking about 2022. What's your immediate reaction? What's your take on this?
First of all, thank you for the time here. Jesse, we must look at Uhuru Kenyatta is the president. He is a symbol of national unity. He might have once in a while issues, and he is allowed to express his displeasure. He is entitled to that. But what we must hold President Uhuru Kenyatta on is that he is the president of the Republic of Kenya. He must express his displeasure in a presidential manner. He must express his displeasure in a manner that unites the country, that does not divide. Look at it this way. We have very many ethnic-based religious groups in this country. There is one for Luos, it's called Dini or something down there. There is one where majority of it are lawyers. If a president can go and say that, I know where I'll take my people, who will speak on behalf of the Samburu people? Who will take them somewhere? Uhuru Kenyatta is a president voted for, and he swore to protect the Constitution. The Constitution recognizes that we are a nation of different ethnic nations in itself. We are a state of different ethnic nations, but we are one state. And therefore, what ought to have been done, if the president has an issue with Mount Kenya legislators, he ought to call them to a caucus somewhere in Naivasha, in Sagana, or somewhere where they can be in a closed-door meeting and speak. What is the danger of a president speaking in a language not understood by everybody in the country is this. One, we don't know which is the right interpretation of what he said. Mm-hmm. Two, it leaves us with everybody can interpret anything. Three, if the president is not happy with what the legislators are doing, because his rant it means there is a displeasure somewhere. What he ought to have done, there is a way of sorting out issues. There is a Mount Kenya caucus for members of parliament. There is the party PG where he can sort it out. But for him to come out there and express that, I think that was a bit on the low. Whereas it has been happening, it must now be stopped, because look at even the three previous presidents. We never saw President Jomo Kenyatta, the founding father, addressing the nation in a language other than Kiswahili and English. We never saw the same by the retired Moi. We never saw Kibaki doing that. So it is a tradition that has been established by his three predecessors, which he ought to keep up with, because by speaking in a language other than Kiswahili and English, languages known by the law, he is trying to bring other things, and it might make the country uncomfortable. Whereas we are talking about national unity. National unity is not an act of just preaching about people coming together. It is also addressed through action. So my take is that whereas he is entitled to the rant, but he must do it in a dignified and a presidential manner.
All right.
And lastly, Jesse, to just wrap up the issue.
Okay.
There is this notion that parliamentarians must go back to the villages. Whereas, yes, we don't need politics at this hour. But I have read through the law and through history and best practices. We have elected politicians. We have reached a point we expect them to behave like leaders. It is not possible. Ours are politicians and dealers. We cannot get leaders in between. So their work, let us just stick to their work. Let them represent, oversight, and legislate. But forcing them to go and work, they might not go there.
Interesting views right there. Rosalie Mabala, senior reporter at The Standard. Many thanks for making time. Now, let's look at our politicking history. Kenya is a country well known for political realignments that seem to happen directly after the previous elections are concluded. Now, will President Uhuru Kenyatta be able to tame politicking in Kenya in the run-up to 2022 general elections? Or is it just the usual angry and riot act reading to members of parliament?
Thank you so much for this opportunity to be in this show. And for me, I think that as much as the president is not happy with what the MPs are doing, it has been a tradition in Kenya whereby after elections, the MPs, there is that election hangover that we always have immediately after elections, and people start calculating about the next election before even we settle and see what the current government has done. And if you look at the last parliament, when the president was still serving his first term, he was able to read the Riot Act and the MPs were obeying him. But now look at this, his second term, where he's relying on legacy. You find that now the MPs are already realigning themselves for 2022 because 2022 they believe he will not be in the equation. So why will we toe the line of a leader that we know is actually earning his legacy and going home? Why can't we realign with somebody that we think in 2022 will be the force to reckon with? And for me, I think it is not coming in for the first time. We have seen this in the past regimes. We even saw it during the one-party rule under Moi, that our leaders get relevance when they engage in politics, as opposed to doing their legislative work. So as much as the president is angered, and for this one it's even more painful that the people who are actually making the president to be angry are his own people from Jubilee, not actually people from the opposition or anything. So it is something that is telling us that either the president is losing grip or they have just decided to toe their line, because if you meet some of them, they will tell you the president will not be there in 2022. And remember when he reminded them that I am the cause of you people being in parliament. I was able to campaign for you. And some have come out to contradict that and said, we were the people who were rallying votes for you. We would have not expected that in his first term, but we are seeing that in this term. So for that, the reading is already on the wall, that it will be very hard to rally these members back. And this is the first time that you're not seeing Jubilee holding a PG meeting. The constitution is very clear. The Secretary General is supposed to convene a PG, a parliamentary group meeting for the members. But we have seen them in low tones, MPs talking. Actually, last week they were even saying, we will actually hold our own meeting, and when we raise a quorum, which is supposed to be a third of the 205 members, we will call for a meeting. We will even storm State House. These were things we will not see in the past, but we are seeing now. It just tells you to the extent that there is direct division in Jubilee.
Very true, and we'll get back to that particular point of the parliamentary group meeting, especially since the last one was held in 2017. Mark Bichachi, the handshake factor in President Uhuru Kenyatta's speech. I mean, let's evaluate the handshake impact in Jubilee's game plan, because it seems that's where the rain started beating us. I know a wing believes President Uhuru Kenyatta might have gone a little bit too far with Raila Odinga, and this somehow puts relevance on a silent game plan come 2022. As you touch on what President Uhuru Kenyatta had to say, also touch on the handshake factor.
There are three prongs in Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy. One is, as you said, the uniting the country, which came through the handshake via Raila Odinga. Number two is the fight against corruption. Number three is the big four. Now, as you correctly put it, the BBI initiative and the handshake is treated with suspicion among the Tanga Tanga group. And the reason it is treated by suspicion is there are politicians in this country whose only specialty has been throughout their career to beat Raila Odinga to the ground. That's the only thing they know. So once he switched from foe to friend, they had no other business to do, which is why most of them are tanga-tangaing, because there is nothing else to do, really. Because to them, they were elected for the sole purpose of ensuring Raila Odinga has no space in the political existence of this country. Once that purpose was removed, then they shoot at everything because they have no target. The second thing, again, which is a misconception among the Tanga Tanga group, is the idea that the fight against corruption is specific to a particular group. And by that they mean themselves. So anytime there is Kimwarer is mentioned, then it is assumed that because Kimwarer is in a certain area of this country, then it is a Tanga Tanga target. But yet there is deafening silence when the same is happening to a governor in Kiambu. You see, so the misconception by some section of politicians within Jubilee concerning specifically BBI and the legacy of the president in terms of uniting the country and the fight against corruption is the big grift. But also, let's remember that the frame of Uhuru Kenyatta's handshake and uniting the country is a very different frame from what other people consider uniting the country. To them, uniting the country is ignore Raila Odinga and let's go the way we've been going. And that's a dangerous thing, because this country cannot forget that 44% of this country has consistently voted for Raila Odinga and have consistently said they feel disenfranchised. So re-enfranchising these people has to be a central thing. But I'd like to also ask my leaders in politics and in Senate and the leaders of majority in both houses. My question is very simple. What is so wrong with President Kenyatta's legacy? What is so wrong with Big Four? What is so wrong with fighting corruption? What is so wrong, pray tell me, with uniting this country? Seriously, what are we opposing? What is this that you have to fight for so hard that you have to say that it's about legacy? What do you mean legacy? Will he take those houses he wants to build to his home? When we are united, will his family be happier? What exactly will he gain after 4 years in fighting corruption? Let's stop making it very personal. Then, these people who are campaigning and sitting in office, I don't understand. The basis of campaigning is a promise. If I want to run for office in Langata or Embakasi North or South, I will tell the people, your MP is doing nonsense, Mark Bichachi will come and make sense. That's what I'll tell them. Now, you're sitting in office, sitting MP, sitting MCA, sitting governor, sitting everything. Now, what are you campaigning? Well, sure, what promise what are you telling us that in 2022 you will do what you're miserably failing to do now? Is that what you're saying? What exactly, what is this tanga-tangaing people are doing? And I do not despise people campaigning, but surely the process of politics in between elections is to get work done unless you are in opposition. If you are in opposition, campaign all the time. That's your job. But you cannot be sitting in office and then promising people things. What are you promising?
All right.
You understand? Can you just do the campaign of any person who's sitting for the next election has got to be, I will do what I have been doing all along. You need to campaign like Biden. Biden, all he's saying, the entire country, is I was with Obama. That's all he needs to say. You understand? But these 2022 people who are sitting in office now, including MPs, promising Kenyans what exactly?
It seems it's a game of relevance, just as Rosaline mentioned. Let's cross over to Dismas Mukua. Let's also look at it from a different angle right now. President Uhuru Kenyatta, if I can borrow a part of his speech, said, "You did not put me in power. As a matter of fact, I am the one who put you in power." Yes. Now, these leaders were sort of instrumental in President Uhuru Kenyatta's campaign in 2017, despite their inclination right now. Now, his foot soldiers were apparently not responsible for him being in power. I beg to ask you the question, who helped him win, according to you?
You know, in Kenya, for you to become a political leader, number one, you have to go to your tribe and be the regional kingpin. Then you come to the national level. Now, when you come to the national level where men are seated and women, then you say, I've got these particular numbers. And you saw the scramble for people to run on a Jubilee ticket, especially in central Kenya and the parts of Rift Valley. Anybody who did not have a Jubilee ticket lost. Even after the bungled up Jubilee Party primaries, people said that they are going to run as independents. William Kavugo is one of them. He got a very serious beating. So for an MP, a member of the National Assembly or the Senate or MCA, to have the alacrity to stand up and say that I made Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, that's being naive and that's being irrelevant. There is no way even the MP from Nakuru, Ngunjiri, would claim that he's the one who made Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. No, that's a logic which is upside down. These were the guys who were pleading for Uhuru to go to their constituency and lay his hands on these candidates. And all these things they're saying that we made Uhuru the president, that is a lazy bone, he did not do any campaigns. That's trying to form a false narrative. And when the president tells them You are members of the National Assembly, you are members of the Senate, go to your constituencies, you've got your CDF fund, and you're supposed to be representing the people. Stop jumping from one church to another church, from one Arambe to another Arambe. It makes perfect sense. Because one of the roles of an MP is to represent your folks at the National Assembly. So if you're spending your entire weekend, jumping from one helicopter to another, going to other rallies, and then at the end of the day, you come back and you say, wait a minute, we have been neglected by President Kenyatta. We don't have development projects in our constituencies. Again, that's voodoo logic, because the members of the National Assembly are the very people who pass the budget. Some of the people who are complaining that they've been neglected, one of them is the chairman of the budget committee. One of them is the chairman of the ICT committee. One of them is these are the guys who decide where money is going. So, do they just imagine that all Kenyans are so foolish that it's Uhuru Kenyatta at State House who is writing checks for projects, that the ones who pass the budgets, that the ones who interrogate development projects? And as Kanini Kega has indicated, a number of these MPs who keep on jumping from one rally to another, they're not back at home. And Kanini Kega is one of the MPs who has been singled out by President Kenyatta himself as somebody who is doing very well. Now, if you've been given a budget of about 100 million in your constituency and you are not using it, and then you start complaining that we've been neglected, that's the logic which is upside down. And it's a statement of disaster that you have MPs from Central Kenya, again, who have the alacrity to claim that Central Kenya has been neglected. Have these MPs gone to Pokot, or have they gone to Kisii where there are no roads? These are privileged people who have been spoiled for choice, and then they come to the public space and telling us they're being neglected. If you go to the National Assembly and you look at the resources allocated for roads in Central Kenya from the time Jubilee administration took over, if you're from Kisii or if you're from Turkana or West Pokot, you will start shedding tears because they've had the lion's share. And it's very disturbing that you have MPs from outside Kenya sleeping on the job. I expect MPs from Kisii, from Taita Taveta, from Mombasa also to come rise to the table and claim their share. I don't understand why these MPs are asleep on the job.
All right, very interesting sentiments right there. I'm sure some of us are burning with comments right there, but maybe I can hustle for a minute just to reply. It seems Kipchumba has something to say, especially on the money factor.
One clarity.
Okay.
We cannot redo the work of a member of parliament, be it a senator or a member of the National Assembly. I think when you read the Constitution, their role is clear. What we must ask them now going forward is that they should not tiptoe around issues. To agree with what Dismas has said is to commit constitutional sacrilege in the extent that the work of a member of parliament is to represent, oversight and legislate. The other thing that we must ask the members of parliament to do is, one, they must align how they use their CDF money with Big Four. That is all they can do. But to say that they must do something is to ask them too much. The other thing is this: we need to start holding some of these members of parliament responsible. If they can shout 20 times in a rally, they should shout 50 times in parliament. And lastly, to clear on the issue of politics, 2022 politics, we cannot ask politicians to stop politicking and allow the CSS we have seen being installed as leaders in their tribes to politic. And
but just wait a minute. Just wait a minute.
Give me 1 minute. Okay. Give me 1 minute. Let's understand that here, no one, when we say in Kenya, stop politics, we don't mean the politics of Aristotle. We mean the nonsense that we practice in this country. Yes. Because, let me ask you a question. 2022 that we are talking about, what exactly is the agenda? Has any of those leaders said that we will surely finish corruption? Has any of those leaders said that the poverty index in this country will be wiped out and we'll have no poor people? Have those people even promised, like Trump and Biden in the States, to stop cancer? Listen, the politics that we are saying should stop are not just now, not in 2021, not in 2022. Is the politics of kingmanship and and I want to inherit a seat. It needs to stop. We need the politics we need to discuss. Is Uhuru delivering on Big Four or not? Let's have that discussion all the day. Let's criticize Big Four. Let's criticize building corruption. Let's criticize. That is the politics we want. But this politics of agriculture has been chosen by God. You must follow me. We are saying no forever.
This must kindly, shortly though.
The question is, and Kipchumba has indicated and is introduced the Constitution. One of the roles of a member of the National Assembly or Senate is to represent your people in those two institutions. So how do you get to represent them if you don't go back to your constituents over the weekend? Every Sunday or every Saturday you are telling us Keleweke or Embrace or Inua Mama, but we are not going back to your constituency. So how do you even get to know whether CDF is being used? How do you get to know the issues at hand so that you come and raise them at the National Assembly?
All right. Very interesting pointers there. And Rosaline, I'll give you a chance to perhaps comment on their statements once we come from this short break. Remember, you're watching Inside Politics. Many thanks for staying with us. We were just touching on Uhuru's riot act towards Team Tanga Tanga, the perceived Team Tanga Tanga. Right now, after the short break, we'll take a look at the widening divisions within Jubilee Party. It's no secret. There's a leaked audio between former Member of Parliament George Nyanja and Jubilee's Secretary General Raphael Tuju. Tuju has been rather calm, dismissing the video as a forgery. But the water has been spilled already. Which way Jubilee? We'll be seeking to answer that question right after this short break. Remember, you can also interact with us later on in the last part of this show. The segment is called Your Call, where we will take your views and definitely get to answer your questions as well. Stay with Inside Politics.